All right, let's bring in this discussion now. Earlier this week, a gathering at Wits University had to be cancelled after Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan was heckled by a group of students who wanted answers around the Eskom crisis. They also called for the resignation of both Gordhan and Eskom CEO Ruyter. In a statement, the Minister's Department says that they won't be intimidated or threatened by what they describe as well-orchestrated performances. For more on what happened, let's bring in Wits master student, that's Nkateko, who joins us in our studio this morning. Joining us via our video link is Tshepo Goba from the Soweto Eskom Crisis Committee. I understand both of you attended that event, so thanks for your time. It's great to have you on the program. Tshepo, let me begin with you. We understand that Gordhan was given an opportunity to speak before the heckling, the shouting, etc. What happened?
You and good evening to your viewers. My name is Goba. I'm the national spokesperson of the Eskom National Crisis Committee. Well, sorry, we were just stuck in the freeway and, petrol prices are increasing. That's why we were doing this interview in a car. Well, Minister Pravin Gordhan was indeed allowed a chance to speak because we respect the decorum of ministers giving briefing and giving accountability to public people. But when the conversation veered off was that Minister Gordhan decided to abscond and abandon the national question, which is why today are South Africans in the dark. And when we spoke to him and when we confronted him with the question of why are South Africans in the dark, he then pointed us to limbsy and flimsy question of 9 wasted years, Gupta, and all of that. I mean, that state capture rhetoric is tired, man. We can't sustain that, sentiment for all these years because it has been ongoing. And when we're asking him to account, we are saying that to him, Mr. Gordhan, why are South Africans in the dark? He says to us, no, it's state capture, it's 9 years, and the reason why Eskom is being privatized is precisely because there's been a crisis of corruption. Whereas we know that in Europe today, there is a burning energy question. England, France, and your Japan's investing in what we call coal-fired power stations, where they are coming to South Africa and taking our most promine coal and exporting it to their local shores so that they can light up their homes. Well, and so what we're arguing to Minister Gordhan was that we can't be in a situation in South Africa where we are compromised by our own, and we're compromised by a deployee of the ANC, and we're compromised by people that we vote for so dearly. And on a simple matter, we ask him on a simple matter that, Minister, if you are then arguing that indeed Eskom has got problems, why do you not put the people that were there during stopping of load shedding? He says to us, no, Eskom has decided now to bring and rope in the most experienced people back into the frame to lecture and tell us and to lecture and tell us about that. No,
all right.
We're bringing in new people. We're bringing in because the workers that are currently at Eskom now, apparently, according to him, are not experienced enough. They don't know what they're doing and all of those things. We then ask him, if you feel that is the case, why are you not then letting the board and your CEO go? Because it can't be correct that South Africans are sitting in the dark. It can't be correct that businesses in South Africa has been shut down, because if you understand the backbone of the industrial complex in South Africa, it's premised on the mineral and energy dependency complex. And then you can't then have a situation where you have a Eskom which is supplying electricity to not only South Africa, but it's termed as the 4th largest global power supplier in the world. And now when we have a situation in South Africa where we are in the dark, this guy is telling us no, the situation is corruption of 9 years and past governance issues. I mean, you are there now. What are you doing? Yes.
I hear you, sir. I just want to make sure that we have a discussion. And to be clear, my understanding is that countries in the global north that are now relying on coal are doing so because of the disruptions that were caused by the war in Europe. I just want to ask a clarity question, though. So what happened on that day is not Pravin Gordhan refusing to answer questions, but was more the result of your dissatisfaction with the answers that you were given?
No, it was a reflection of the people's frustrations. Remember, my brother, we are reflecting and we are products of the community before we are students, before we are activists, before we are anything else. So the irritation that our people are expressing on the ground is the irritation that was expressed by the students there. I mean, when you saw the national chairman of the crisis committee, Comrade Douglas, and Comrade Nkateko, and all other comrades vilifying and telling Pravin Gordhan that you are not giving us correct answers because part of these 9 wasted years you speak, you were a finance minister.
Okay.
And these state-owned entities now that you are privatizing today, you were also a leader of them. You were also a shareholder as a Ministry of Finance. You were also someone that was in tandem with the current government that is today. So when we ask him these questions, he says to us, no, you guys don't know anything. What are you going to do? I mean, the apathy of South Africans is that we were holding Peggy to account because he was answering Ian Cameron in a certain way. And then people felt that, no, our ministers can't account for what they need to account for. But when it comes to Pravin Gordhan, South Africans seems that they have such a lowered, you know, and such when they deal with Pravin Gordhan, okay. So sithi namda kwethu uPravin Gordhan uyasisokolisa.
Hold it there.
Uhluphekisa abantu bethu, odade, odamkhulu, omama, nomakazi bethu, nobhuti bethu, kwindawo ngendawo esiphuma kuzo, abanambane namhlanje, inzalelwane, abafundi esikolweni, i-businesses ezikhasayo that were sustained by, you know, township economy now that was young people.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there. Currently. I hear you. We press for time, and I also want to bring in Nkateko, who you've mentioned in your response there. He's with us in studio this morning. You know, part of the conversations, Nkateko, that have emerged since then is how effective that action actually was. And, you know, people can't be criticized for the kind of activism they take on, right? You can do whatever you're allowed to by the Constitution. But there's real questions around how far that will go, because as you and I speak today, Pravin Gordhan is still very much the Public Enterprises Minister.
Yes, he's still very much the Public Enterprises Minister, and will probably remain there for a very long time. But we have sent a statement to the ANC, to the government of the day, that if you don't fix this problem, you might lose the next elections. Because part of the problems at Eskom, by the way, it's Pravin. And this, we also saw at SAA, right? It was Pravin. He presided over an unprecedented in the history of South Africa that a state-owned entity can be bought for such a low amount of money. It was Pravin. And we were told that those who were going to take over that state-owned entity were going to pay for the debt, but there are reports coming out that the state actually paid for the debt of SAA after being sold for 51 rand. So these are some of the frustrations that we have to say, where are we heading as a country? Where are we heading? What kind of country are we going to inherit? And I am not going to sit down and inherit a country that is dominated by private players, where the state's capacity to give socio-economic impetus to the country is weakened by private entities. Because now, right now at Eskom, we're hearing of IPPs. We're hearing of private partners who are going to invest heavily into Eskom when they unbundle it.
Yeah.
Right? And these are some of the issues that we raised with Minister Gordhan. And we thought we're raising them with someone who's apprised with the role of the state in a developmental estate, particularly in the South African context, where the majority of the people have been deprived of opportunities to work, opportunities to have a decent living, opportunity to alleviate poverty by the previous governments, right? So he doesn't understand that.
Okay, let me ask you this. It's interesting, your discussions around privatization, because there are other people on the other side of the spectrum who are saying the state has failed, and the people who are suffering are ordinary South Africans, and perhaps the private sector is where the answer is. But that's a separate discussion. Yes. I still want to discuss what happened at Wits.
Yes.
You started your response by essentially suggesting that this was a warning shot to the ANC, that if they don't fix this, then they're not going to be in power come 2024. It's interesting because in Pravin Gordhan's statement, or his department statement, they're suggesting that you were sent by political forces to cause that disruption. What's your response to that?
That's paranoia. That's a paranoid minister. And I'm not going to dignify him with an answer. I'm not going to dignify his allegations. In fact, he's the biggest gossiper right? And we know he is known for listening to gossip a lot and acting on gossip.
But what are you basing that on?
So he's gossiping. Which politicians? Let him name them. Let him name them one by one and tell us who bought us. We're not bought. I cannot be bought. My brother, I'm doing a master's at Wits. Not just anywhere, at Wits. I'm studying developmental state and I'm studying privatization right now as we speak. To shape the future of this country. I cannot be bought. Can't be bought. No one can buy me.
For clarity's sake, therefore, none of you in that action were affiliated to any political party.
All of us are affiliated, just like the minister. We're all affiliated to the political party, and some of us are ANC members in good standing, and some of us have raised in branches that we are dissatisfied with a lot of ministers in government, and we're dissatisfied with a lot of things that have been happening in the ANC, and we've raised them in the branches, and we'll continue to raise them in the branches. But Minister Pravin Gordhan every time defines himself outside of the ANC. Hence, we address them in that manner, right? As a minister, not an ANC member. We addressed him as a minister, not an ANC member. Because he always defines himself out of the ANC. So we also defined ourselves outside of the ANC and spoke from a lived reality perspective.
Okay. If, now that I've learned you are affiliated to the ANC, many people might say, well, this is a crisis that your party has helped to conjure up in some respects. I mean, what kind of agitation is happening from within the organization? Because let's be frank, yes, he was there as a minister, but he's a minister that's been deployed by the party you belong to.
Where is it written that he was deployed by the party?
Well, I mean, we typically know that the governing party, when they win an election, the people who go and represent the governing party sometimes are put in government.
In the executive.
Is Pravin Gordhan not part of the NEC of the ANC?
He's part of the NEC of the ANC.
And it's a mere coincidence?
No, it's not a mere coincidence. But where are you saying that people within the party themselves have endorsed him?
Well, I mean, the NEC has put him in a certain position.
The NEC, a group of people, a clique, as he speaks.
So
a clique of people.
And you don't identify with them?
There are some decisions that we don't identify with, and we're not going to speak about them here. We're going to speak about them in our branches.
Okay. The way forward, as mentioned, the reality is that Pravin Gordhan is still going to remain in place. And perhaps let me throw this question to Kamveli, who's with us via our video link. The reality, Kamveli, is that many, I think, who watched what happened, who are listening to you now, can relate to the frustration. We're all desperate for solutions. The question becomes what that path looks like if we're going to get to those solutions quick enough.
The reality is this, my brother. The ruling...
What a pity. What a pity. Apologies. Completely out of our control. Do you want to take that question?
So you see the effects of load shedding on our people. Imagine if I'm working from home and I'm in an executive meeting or I'm in a meeting with my boss and that happens. I might face a lot of problems afterwards, right? So those are the effects of load shedding. So what are the solutions on the table? The problem at Eskom, the real problem at Eskom is lack of leadership. We don't want to lie and say Eskom has a fundamentally flawed system of governance and stuff like that. It's a problem with leadership. And we know they took someone who presided over a state-owned entity that collapsed, and they bring him in to revive a state-owned entity that is collapsed. I mean, really. It's like, do you watch football, my brother? It's like bringing Pep Guardiola to come and coach Norwich City. He's not going to do anything, right? Or Sam Allardyce to come and coach Manchester City. He's not going to do anything because they are used to such things, right? So, the first point, the board of Eskom need to account. And the second point, if the Ruyter does not give satisfactory answers and solutions in the next coming weeks, then the board must exercise its prerogative to put him on suspension or on leave or fire him completely.
All right. That's the time we have. very strong sentiments, and I think, as I mentioned before, sentiments that are reflected by many South Africans who will be watching. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to a point where there's some kind of agreement for a crisis that's affecting all of us. In his absence, Kamvelishe Goba, I beg your pardon, is with the Soweto Eskom Crisis Committee. He was with us via video link, and in studio with us was Nkateko Ruyter, who is a Wits master student, was also in the room at the time of that heated exchange with Minister Pravin Gordhan. To both our guests, thanks very much indeed for your time.